Hello friend, Anna Sabramwitz here. I help people craft, draft, and write scenarios, and I just had some hibiscus tea, which is very sour and delicious, full of vitamin C. Okay, so, by the way, if you haven't tried hibiscus tea, you really should try it. I went to Tanzania. When I went to Tanzania, I asked people how they pronounced Tanzania, because some people say Tanzania and some people say Tanzania. So it's Tanzania, by the way, I think. I hope I remember that right. Anyways, so when I went there, I'd never had hibiscus tea before, but where I was kind of like the hub of hibiscus tea, and I tried it and it was awesome. And it's a great tea because it has no caffeine, so you can basically drink it all day, and it's wonderful, lowers blood pressure, and it's really quite cool. So anyways, now that we move on to the next part of this from the desk of Anna Sabramwitz, the reason I'm shooting this video is because somebody commented underneath one of my videos, and they asked a very interesting question, and I think this question is very common, and also instead of me trying to basically formulate something and put it into 2 sentences underneath the video in the comments, I would just actually shoot a video about it. One of the things I wanted to bring up before I read the question is this book, which I feel that everybody who is in learning, project management, instructional design, everybody should read this book. If you deal with teams, read it. It's called The 4 Disciplines of Execution. And one of the things that this book focuses on is the how of things. And one of the things that's said in the foreword is how most people know the what, and they know what to do, but they don't know how to do it. So or even the first steps on how to do it. So we know that we need to, let's say, eat less carbs. We need to walk more, be more active. We need to create more engaging e-learning. And how do we do that? Now that's the rub. So one of the things I want to really focus on when I shoot these videos for you, and any kind of really communication that I have, is to be more focused on the how, because I think a lot of people know the what, and we're tired of the what. I mean, the what is necessary, because the what gives you that big picture, like what are you trying to achieve? Then how the heck are you going to do that, right? So let's do the how. And if these come off as prescriptive, and some people have questioned me on that, they're like, how can you make this decision? Is because somebody has to. And also, if I give you a tip on how to do something, guess what? You can go and try it, and if it doesn't work for you, then you can say, Anna, that didn't work. Or you can just keep it to yourself, because I'm only sharing stuff with you that actually has worked for me. Now, the reason I'm sharing this strategy is because I found it, I learned it years ago, and now I've implemented it lots and lots of times, and it is extremely effective. So first let me read you the question, and then we can get into it. So the question is that, let's say I'm designing e-learning, and my decision maker has no idea what they want the end product to look like, but they will know it when they see it. And this is a very important question, because I know that a lot of people struggle with this, because the people that are sponsors or stakeholders, they're not involved in learning in any way, or e-learning for that matter. This is a different world for them. They're in a different world, and they're coming to us for that advice. So when they tell you that they don't know what it's going to be or what it's going to look like, I think you should almost take that as a compliment, because that means that they trust you to do that. Although it can mean in some ways that somebody is expecting you to guess what is in their heads, and they could be meaning something like, they want to see something like some full VR animation stuff, or they're looking for something that actually delivers results, and they don't care what it looks like necessarily. So one of the strategies that I picked up over the years is from actually Michael Allen, and it's from his e-learning design books, and also when he introduced SAM, which is the I call it the successive approximation method, but I don't think that's what he calls it. Anyways, so Sam versus Addie, it's when you iterate on things. But one of the things that Michael Allen uses is the savvy start. And the savvy start is where everybody gets together, locks themselves in a room with the stakeholder, and they really try and work very intensely to figure out what their module is going to be, what this learning's about, what are the things that are going to work well for the learner as far as what kind of behaviors need to be reinforced, and how is this going to probably fit into the ecosystem of that company's learning, right? And their performance support mechanisms. So it's kind of interesting because if you look at the demos that Michael Allen has provided on his site, they all look rapidly different. Like, just they all look like different beasts. It's quite crazy. But if you look a little deeper, you realize that, and if you listen to actually my video or my interview with Steve Lee, who is the co-founder of Allen Interactions, they're very smart over there, by the way. And they realize that through years of experimentation as well, that there is only a few models for learning. And so if you look at a lot of once you start to recognize the models that are out there, these frameworks, you start to see these patterns almost everywhere. So when you look at interactions that are quite complicated, after you strip away the visual eye candy stuff and the interaction little bits and pieces, then you actually see the framework underneath. And the framework, what's beautiful is once you've got these frameworks kind of set up for yourself, you don't need to be afraid entering into any learning project, because, and that's why I always talk about, having a swipe file, or really defining your models and keeping them around so that you can just, basically a model for e-learning is a tool. It's a tool that helps somebody acquire a certain kind of skill set, whether that's making a decision, whether that's learning how to interpret something, whether that is memorization. Like, there's all kinds of models that help you do things. So one of the things that you should do when you are first beginning and somebody is unsure is always solidify that model first. So I'm not going to go through all the models, but I am going to give you just, I think, 3 to just give you an idea of what I think about in the back as far as what my frameworks are when somebody comes in with like a need to make some sort of a change or to augment something in their learning. So the first model, surprise, surprise, is a scenario. And a scenario is great for helping people practice making decisions in a safe place. A scenario is also great for helping people practice exploring different alternatives to difficult situations. Scenario also is great for providing context for upcoming learning. Scenario is great for bringing up uncomfortable topics and then having people mull over them before they even come to a live session. So those are just some of the applications of a scenario. So if I, through my conversation with my stakeholder, discovered that there's some sort of a change, or not necessarily behavior change, but almost a mindset change or some sort of ahas that I want the learner to achieve, I'd say scenario model is great. The scenario model is very simple. It is a situation followed by some really contextual options, followed by the consequences that result from those options, and then, when appropriate, feedback. That's it. Then our next model, which I use, and actually I have a video dedicated to all of these models, so check out my YouTube channel if you want to check that out. And also, if you want help with scenarios, look up scheduleanna.com and fill out an application form. If you have a project coming up in the next this next month or so, because my delivery cycle is very, very short. It's only like about 6 weeks. So if you have a project that you want my help on, or you have a team that you want to augment with a scenario expert, get in touch. Now the next one is advice model. The advice model, and I don't know what the name of it specifically is, but whenever I use, say, the advice model, it brings up the image of basically what happens is you give people a situation, and sometimes a situation, I like to use the advice model when people have to understand or translate a concept into everyday language, and there's more than one way to interpret the same kind of situation. So what I like is you present the learner with a situation, and then they have the advice of 4 people, let's say, and those 4 people are telling them something. At least 2 of them are giving them the right advice as to either what something means, how they should approach a situation, and all, something like that. So then what happens is that person gets to think about this situation from the perspective and the advice of 4 different people, which is really useful, especially if you're doing something like policy or understanding like the legal language. Let's say, what does that actually mean to somebody? And it helps them contextualize it in the way that somebody would actually say it or apply it at their workplace. So I really love that activity. So if we're looking through, how to apply or how to understand specific company policies, or when to bring something up when somebody is maybe in a case of misconduct, that would be a great activity to use. Then there's the other activity, which I don't actually call it this, I call it something goofy, but I think this would be sufficient for you. So it's called the reinforced reference tool. And the reinforced reference tool is when you're trying to, when one of the key goals of the training that you're designing is that people don't memorize what they're doing, they actually reference a tool that's on the job. So what that one does is it presents somebody with a situation. Like I said, all these models are online as far as I've discussed them. So this one is, there's a situation being presented to the learner, and very quickly they're asked to make a decision about whether the person who is in that scenario, in that situation, has handled it the right way. So very quickly you ask them to jump to a conclusion. And then what happens is that person is then asked to look at what happens as a result of that decision. So it's not really a consequence thing, it's more of a look at this advice or these key pieces of information to see what has happened as a result. And one of them is, could be where the next day's news is company gets sued because employee didn't lock the back door. And somebody stole all the credit card files. The next one is policy says blah blah blah, right? So then what happens is after the learner reviews this additional information and references it, let's say, then they are given an opportunity to decide whether they want to keep their original answer or change their answer. And then based on that, they get some results. So it's a really cool model. It takes a little bit of planning, but there are situations where what happens is if these models are clearly outlined, you've got them kind of drafted or in working form, then what happens is once somebody tells you what they're really trying to achieve, you can instantly decide which one's going to be a fit, because when it's a fit, it's beautiful. What I suggest though is a scenario can probably fit 99% of your model needs. And then there's the other pieces that are good to augment when something is really a good fit. Trying to fit one thing into all of them is going to be challenging because you have to be really thinking about the right situations. But the scenario model is actually the most robust and flexible when it comes to this kind of work. And then after you've got that model down, I think most people give too much option up front as far as design goes. And I've learned this from experience. I remember sending people decks and decks of awesome exercises and how they could look, and 10 different skins, and the kinds of things we could do. You just got to be more decisive. So what I suggest is what people really want is choice. They don't want infinite choice. They don't want overwhelming choice. They want choice, period. So what you want to do is give them 2 or 3 options to choose from, and then let them know, ask them which one they prefer the most, and then go from there. So what that will do is really remove that overwhelm of, wow, look, the world's my oyster, because it is, but that's fine. We need to be able to make those constraints on behalf of our customer. And if you already have several models that you're like, okay, we're going to start off with like 2 or 3 scenarios, and then we're going to get into this, basically this quick little word memorization game because it really works here for the terminology, and then we're just going to do something else. You can wrap that up in a really quick shell, nothing fancy, and then add things later. So keep it really minimal in the very beginning. But then, one of the things you can do is you don't have to design things anymore, really. Go to like Articulate 360 and check out the templates. Those are custom designed by like real designers who do that for a living with palettes and shapes and all that stuff. Go there. Well, hopefully you have a subscription. If you don't, you should, because it's awesome. And then just download what you want. Pick 2 or 3. Do not send your customer there. That's the worst thing to do, because there's hundreds literally of assets and you don't want them rummaging around in there. You want to do that custom work for them, where you've said, I've selected some of these for you. These I think are great. They're really good contrast. They work with our they complement the other things that we have. Whatever it is for you, pick your flavor, give them 2 or 3 to choose from, and there you go. So I hope that was helpful. Like I said, if you have any questions about any of the recommendations or any of the information that I share, please post a comment. Maybe I will shoot a video about your comment. And if you want to work with me, I am here, scheduleanna.com, book an appointment, and you have to fill in an application because I have to know if we're going to be a good fit, because I really only want to work with clients where I know I can add a lot of value. And if you have a workforce that's aging and you need to, or leaving rapidly, there are some places where they just upskill people and then they just lose them right away, right? So if you're one of those workplaces and you want to capture that elite talent, that elite knowledge, I can help you with that. And then we can turn that into amazing resources for the rest of your company. So have a wonderful rest of the day. And thanks for sticking around, friend. Take care. Bye.